just kind of having trouble, squaring, exactly what the statute is doing and what it's covering.
It may not be the most artfully written, but I will tell you, and I know that Assistant City Manager Mills may want to talk about the operational here, but what we always will do is maintain the confidentiality of the information that we have to maintain pursuant to B. Obviously, there are other confidential things that all of our personnel files have that concern our social security number, family matters, those kinds of things. But that's the distinction we use. And again, it doesn't matter where people are sitting who are handling the files. It depends on what the substance of the documents are.
And with regard to, and honestly, I don't know how many kind of relevant documents that HR is going to have with regard to kind of, the police misconduct and complaints and those kinds of issues. My sense would be that would be more in the chain of command and or with the Office of Police Oversight. Is the Office of Police Oversight likewise any documentation that they have, any investigations that they have? What's the status of those types of records?
Again, it would be the same, but it also, with the Office of Police Oversight, does depend on the contract with the police. If there's negotiations, we can, obviously that's one thing that's important about negotiating the contract is you can change those regulations and give OPO different authority.
And that's an excellent point, City Attorney. I remember in one of the complaints recently, or one of the disciplinary actions, it was one of the high-profile ones that I think was subject to one of the transparency provisions in the negotiated contract. The OPO recommendation, which I believe was for discipline, was made public, even though the officer was ultimately not disciplined, and so it was an unsustained complaint. But the OPO did release their analysis and version of the events. Without the contract, what would be the status of those types of investigations by OPO?
Right, that's what I was just saying. When we had the negotiated contract in place, that gave the authority to OPO to release that document. Without that negotiated contract, there is no ability to do that. So OPO's documents are covered just like everybody else's. G-file means G-file, B-file would mean B-file.
And so currently, OPO's investigations of alleged misconduct are made confidential under Chapter 143 unless they result in disciplinary conduct or discipline for the police officer?
That's correct.
He doesn't seem like he. I don't know.
The passage of the APOA, I think, was a strong signal from the community in favor of the maximum transparency within the police department with regard to really any and all documents. But we've been digging into this. I appreciate the answers, City Attorney, and
The law says
I will
there's exemptions.
be bringing, hopefully soon, an item with regard to kind of APOA implementation. It's in the idea stage right now. Just to be frank, it's not in any kind of drafting stage at this point.
And I have to understand the law first.
I would like to get a handle on what kind of the limits and contours of Chapter 143.
Should have done this
I would
beforehand,
like to
buddy.
get a better and kind of complete understanding of the APOA.
But the vote on the
and
budget.
Until we get there, I'm hesitant to make any personnel changes that, again, I'm unclear if it would
Should've
affect
been-
anything. I understand
Whatever.
that the city's position is that it wouldn't. I think that's an extremely fair position, but until I personally am there, I would like to hold off.
Did you ever reach
on
out to this
the
person
transfer,
before? Like, did they not answer your
for
phone
the
call, or did you
time
never
being. And thus I will
communicate
go
this?
ahead and offer my amendment to basically postpone the transfer of those positions at this time.
Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you. Based on what, and this is probably another question for legal, so Ms. Morgan, if you could respond. Based on what I heard the council member from District 4 say, he's bringing this forward as an amendment to the budget, but it sounds to me more like it's policy. And I'm just wondering if this can come forward as an amendment, because I haven't seen anything posted anywhere. My constituents hadn't had a chance to weigh in. And to be quite honest, I feel very uncomfortable bringing this during the budget when we haven't had that robust discussion. And there are no other co-sponsors, whereas the rest of our IFCs needed co-sponsors. Could you maybe explain that to us? And then I have a couple more questions.
I think Ed Vanino is trying to jump in, so I'm going to let him start.
Yeah, I just didn't want to jump ahead of the city attorney, but this would need to be a budget amendment because what it's doing is moving personnel. So that while the dollar amounts will stay the same because of how the cost allocation works, this removes positions from the police department's budget. So you'll see the police department FTE count go down, and you'll see the FTE count of building services
Full-time employee.
and public
FTE.
information and human resources go up, and that does require an amendment from council to the budget.
And let me weigh in a little bit, and do this in a thoughtful way. Under the council manager form of government, and 21 years ago, when something like this would be
Back in
offered,
my day.
it would be consent and routine. And that's because under the charter, the manager has complete and total control over personnel policies. There have been several items that I've tried to do this budget where you've asked me to
So bad for
delay.
this guy, to be honest.
And really, that while you have that
He's
power,
making decisions
you have
the whole-
that policy
all the
capability,
city
it really
organizations don't
undermines this
want it.
form of government. And I just have to tell you, just frankly, this is not, whoever sits in this seat after I leave has to be able to move the boxes the way they need to move them, so that this organization is responsive and meets the demands, not just of certain public, but all the public. And I just want to say that for the record, that
Have
that
to agree
really
with him
makes
there.
me uncomfortable about some of these discussions that we're having. And I understand you've got, people have been asking us to take a look at this, but I just need you, for the council to understand, under this form of government, these things, not just this one, but others that have happened, and you know which ones those are, it really is concerning for me.
Dang.